Good afternoon. This is Tim Thiessen Live, broadcasting from the palatial studios of Central Valley Talk right here in downtown Fresno. We have a great show lined up for you today, folks. We have Stephen Bassett from Academy Mortgage Corporation with us, leading off the show, and then Stephen Worthley, Supervisor District 4 in Tulare County. And we're going to be finishing the day with Dr. John Eastman from Chapman University and talking about Supreme Court decisions that have been taking place in their last session, the last 12 months. So this, for those of you just joining us, the underlying message of this show each and every week is hope, growth, and prosperity. Any direction our government takes us other than that is the wrong direction. And knowledge is what enables us to make good decisions every day of our life. First comes knowledge and then wisdom. Knowledge tells us that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom tells you never put it into a fruit salad. So anyway, our first guest is Steve Bassett. Steve, thanks for coming on board today with us, and with Academy Mortgage. And how many years have you been in the lending business?
About 7 years now. Okay,
great. There's a lot of, in this environment we're in right now, there's a lot of folks that just think it's impossible to get a loan to achieve their goal of owning a home, which is really owning your home is the American dream.
Right.
And so if somebody calls you, Steve, on the phone and they're inquiring about what it takes to get qualified, why don't you just walk us through that process?
Through the process itself? Sure.
Sure.
Basically what you want to do is somebody calls me, we go and we end up talking a little bit over the phone, try to figure out where they're at. But most of the time I'll go ahead and meet with them because I like the one-on-one with the individual. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll review their documentation. In other words, check and see where they're at with income, with their savings and monies that they have to be able to go towards a home. And of course, always checking their credit. But we have to go through that, do an application basically, and see if we can get them approved at that point. But this is always the first step really in the way of purchasing a home, so that way we can tell them exactly where they're at, how much money they'll qualify for a home, so they know what the price range is on the home, and they'll have a really good idea as to what their payment's going to be.
Yeah, and what's really important in this environment too is, as a licensed realtor, I approach people or they come to me and I'll send them to a lender such as yourself or anywhere where they're going to be comfortable, and I try to keep the lenders concentric to the area that they're buying into, because that way you have immediate access to a qualified loan representative. And a lot of people say, well, we want to shop first and then we'll get qualified. And from the realtor's point of view is, in this environment, the days of submitting an offer without a letter of pre-qualification, those days are over.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about what people really need as far as minimum credit scores. And why it's important to come talk to someone like you, Steve. So if their credit score is not up to snuff, within about 6 months you can usually repair credit and get them moving forward.
In many cases we can do that, yes. Basically the minimum credit score now for like an FHA loan is a 640 credit score. The higher the credit, of course, the better it is. Right. Ideally, if you can be a 740 or better, that's going to get you the best you can always get. But as long as you've got a 640, you're okay. There are a couple loan programs that you can go down to a 620. So it has a limitation on that. But if you have a 640 or better credit score, that's the best way. If somehow when I'm going through a credit report, I can tell what might be causing that credit score to maybe be a little on the lower side or maybe not meet that 640 minimum, and I'm able to discuss with the individual or couple that's there and try to figure out how we might be able to raise that score up. Sometimes it's maybe it's a collection, maybe it's having too much debt on a credit card, which of course can cause a credit score to be down. And sometimes even just moving some of the monies that are borrowed, borrowing against another card to even it and bring down some of the debt on a credit card and leveling that out can raise that credit score. So that can be something that can be done almost immediately and get somebody ready to go.
Yeah, another thing too that is guarantees to lower your credit score is if you ever close a credit card account. A lot of people kind of walk through that scenario because people become very frustrated, and rather than just cut up their cards and leave the account open,
right,
they close the account, and that is detrimental, very detrimental.
It is very detrimental. One of the things that credit score is based on is the amount of credit that is available to a person. And so let's just say that you have 3 credit cards with $1,000 on each of those credit cards. There's $3,000 of credit that's available to that individual, okay? But if you end up borrowing against that $3,000 credit line and you go above about 40% of that, that's going to start to lower your credit score. So that's one thing that you look at. But then getting back to what you're talking of, somebody pays off a credit card and then they close that credit account. So instead of having 3 at $1,000 a piece, all of a sudden it's down to $2,000 as to what they have available for credit, and that can actually lower your credit score. So if somebody wants to pay off a card, fine, but like you said, don't close it, leave it open. Just don't use it anymore, if nothing else.
Yeah, if the temptation becomes too great, cut up the card, leave the account open, get your statement, which is I love seeing credit card bills that come back with a 0.00 every month, and leave that open, and that signifies you have available credit, that you're being very judicious with your money, and you're not spending yourself all the way out. And extremely important. I've seen people do this time after time. They're almost qualified. They close the credit card account, and what kind of a ding average are you getting? I had one, it hurt him like 40 points on
and
the
it
credit.
Could. I can't tell you exactly because it's going to vary from individual to individual, but it can vary quite a bit. And if it dings at 40 points and they were at a 670, all of a sudden they're below the 640 and they're not going to qualify for a loan. Right. So the other thing that you might want to do, though, if you don't want to have a credit card like that, if you go and end up paying it off and then you cut up the credit card like you're talking of, the downside with that is over a period of time, the lender will go and end up closing that account. So you may want to just use it periodically. Once in a while, just charge a small charge and pay it off so that it's got a little bit of activity. But, of course, don't run it up.
Right. Well, absolutely. What happens is that advice there is if somebody does have a bit of a self-control problem, then you cut up the card.
Exactly
the
right.
best is to put that credit card in a safe deposit box where it takes an effort to get to it, and just let the thing keep running. Occasionally pull it out, and maybe put like a $50 charge on it, put the card back and take it out. And it sounds like really simplified stuff, but let me tell you, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. Another issue, Steve, that we've been plagued with, we talk about it almost every week that we're doing real estate on this show, is the foreclosure and short sale situation. And we constantly here, as we're growing our viewership, constantly have new viewers. And so kind of walk through the scenario of where you're at. Say you've gone through a short sale, which is going to affect your credit. Worst case scenario, if you've gone through a foreclosure and lost your home, what are the steps to really repair it, and time frames to get back into the market to own a home again?
Okay. Dealing with a short sale or a foreclosure, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be in the same situation as a bankruptcy where you have no more credit accounts available to you. Still, with a short sale or a foreclosure, you usually can keep your credit cards and things like that. So you still have some established credit there. But with a short sale foreclosure, some people think that you're going to have to wait 5-10 years before you can actually get back into the marketplace, and that's not necessarily the case. You can get back into and buy a home as early as maybe 3 years with an FHA loan. So you can get back into that marketplace and buy a house if you'd like to, if it's been 3 years since you actually had the settlement for that. With a bankruptcy, that one you can get back in and buy a house as early as 2 years. However, you do have to reestablish your credit, and that's one of the biggest things that you have to work at. It's hard once you've had a bankruptcy to go and apply for getting another credit card, to start to reestablish that. So it's almost like starting over with your credit history itself. but it's not impossible to do. Just get started with that. If you have questions, it's always good to talk to a lender. That's one of the things that I do quite a bit, is to work with people to try to get them back on track so that they can go ahead and get a home as soon as possible.
Oh, absolutely. That's critical to the whole process, and that's why if you are entertaining the thought of buying a home and maybe you're 6 months out, is get with a lender. I always tell my folks to get with a lender, find out where you're at as far as what you qualify for. If things need to be tuned up on your credit, that way when the day comes, you're ready to go. And lenders such as yourself will be more than happy to walk people through this repair process.
I do it all the time.
Also, there's some new programs out and some established programs like the Platinum program. You want to talk about some of the really good things that are happening in the loan business here.
Yeah. Well, right now let's face it, sometimes people are a little bit shy of cash to be able to close and to purchase a home. And there is a program that's out there. It's a CHF Platinum program that is available for not just for new home buyers, but it can also be for any buyer other than investments. So it can be somebody that is looking to buy a house. And what this is it's a grant of 3% that can go towards closing costs or for your down payment. So if you ended up getting the sellers to help you with some of the closing costs, you can use the grant to go towards your down payment. And with an FHA mortgage, which is a 3.5% down, that can actually mean that you can just need to come up with the 0.5% down and then any extra on the closing costs that maybe the seller won't pay for. So it's a program that it does have a limitation there of income. You have to be less than $84,480 in the way of income for the borrowers on that. And of course, you don't get something for nothing. It is slightly higher in the way of the interest rate, but I mean, I'm not talking of a high rate. It's only maybe a 1/4 to a 1/2 point higher, and that's it.
Well, and as always, we always highlight in our real estate segment here the right now, folks, is the time to buy. We've seen pricing now that's really rolled back about 8 years, 7 to 8. Some areas 9-year pricing now where prices were. Record low interest rates.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee how long the interest rates are going to stay down.
No.
And so there's always a threat of that going up. And your interest rate is going to trigger some adverse reactions in what you're qualified to buy.
Right.
And sometimes the interest rate that you pay is going to become more important than maybe squabbling over $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 on the purchase price of the home. In the big picture, because the interest goes on for 30 years or whatever the duration of the loan is. So anyway, Steve, thank you so much for coming in today, and good to see you again. And we're going to be right back with Steve Worthley right after this brief commercial message.